Good afternoon. This is Lauren, your dietitian from Livea in Roseville. Thank you so much for joining me today. Whether you are at home or at work, I'm glad you could listen in. Today we'll be exploring some common negative thoughts and how they may be holding you back from weight loss success. Automatic negative thoughts are pretty common. A lot of times we may not even realize that we're doing them. So our goal today is to learn how to be more aware of these thoughts and the way they affect us and our attitudes and our actions. We'll practice looking for information that we might be missing in order to have a more accurate view of ourselves and our choices and a better ability to make changes. We'll also do some practice at the end. I'll give a few sample negative thoughts, and you can feel free to go through the thought examination process with thoughts that you may find yourself stumbling into. Automatic negative thought is also called a cognitive distortion. These are thoughts that may appear true, but they're based on incomplete or incorrect information. These are thoughts that may affect our attitudes, our feelings, our actions. And I really want to highlight the difference between turning your frown upside down and examining your automatic negative thoughts. So what we're doing today is we're not just trying to make a good thing come out of a bad situation. We're not just looking for a silver lining. We're looking for actual true information that we're missing that could affect the way that we see a particular situation. First automatic negative thought we'll be talking about is all or nothing thinking. This is when you're viewing your meal plan as perfect or as failed without considering the range in between of mostly healthy choices that you're probably making. This tends to lead us into more poor choices and tends to leave us feeling disappointed because we think that we failed when actually we're doing pretty well. For example, you could say, I ate a cookie, so I've ruined the whole weekend. And here it's important to stop and think, did we really ruin the whole weekend with one unhealthy choice? I invite you to think of it more like a spectrum. So you can see the diagram that I've drawn on the screen to help out with that, where we have healthy choices on one end and not so healthy choices on the other end. So one choice doesn't automatically shoot us from one side or the other. It just kind of nudges us one way or the other. So even if we're not perfect, we can still be doing really well and making mostly healthy choices. Next one is called catastrophizing. Now try saying that 5 times fast. It's also known as disaster making, which is a little bit easier to say. And some people would relate it to the cognitive distortion called fortune telling. And this is when we're imagining the worst case scenario. For example, we could say, I can't believe I ate that. I'm going to gain all my weight back. And in this instance, it's really important to stop and examine whether that worst case scenario is really likely to happen. Because the truth is, we're probably not going to gain all the weight back. But ask yourself, when you are looking at the worst case scenario, when you're predicting the worst case scenario, when you're making it a disaster, are you more likely to act differently because you think that the negative outcome is inevitable anyway? It can help to stop and ask, if you're sure it's actually going to happen, and then start imagining other possible scenarios. It's possible that, for example, you'll gain a couple pounds, but keep most of your weight off. It's also possible that you'll fluctuate in a healthy weight range. Maybe you'll gain a couple pounds this week, but you'll be down a couple pounds the next week. It's also possible that based on how you feel after a particular decision, you'll make a better choice and maybe eat less or choose a food differently the next time. It can really help to imagine things going well, because when we imagine what we want to happen, we're more likely to make choices that lead to that outcome. Labeling is when we use a negative descriptor of ourselves. For example, I have heard people say, I'm an overeater or I'm a failure. And something I wanted to connect to this story was I volunteered once at a homeless shelter in Chicago for young men. And they told us there, we like to say that these men are experiencing homelessness. We don't say that they're homeless because we don't want to put that label on them. We don't want to make that story part of who they are. We want it to be a temporary condition that they're experiencing. And it's similar with healthy eating. When we say, I'm an overeater or I'm a failure, when we internalize a negative story about ourselves, we're more likely to act on it. So we're more likely to overeat, less likely to exercise. We're more likely to practice those unhealthy behaviors and less likely to practice the healthy behaviors because we've labeled ourselves and internalized a story about ourselves. It can help to step back and try to take a non-judgmental attitude towards yourself. So this would be almost as if you were an outside third person looking at yourself and examining the situation that you're in. For example, instead of saying, I'm an overeater, you could say, I overate today, and kind of examine how that makes you feel, whether it makes you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. And based on how that makes you feel, you then step back, step forward, and make the next right choice. Qualifying the positive. Now, this one is related to all or nothing thinking, and this is when we ignore the good things that happened. An example of this might be when we come in and we feel like we've had a really good week. We drank all our water, we were active, we ate healthy food, we made a lot of good choices, and we step on the scale and it hasn't moved. And though this can be really disappointing, but how we move forward from that disappointment matters. The scale is an important factor, particularly in weight loss, but there are many other factors that matter just as much. And you'll hear me say this again, but those healthy behaviors that you're practicing in order to lose weight, those are going to set you up to maintain your weight long term. So those are really important to establish your health and establish those healthy habits now so that then you can maintain the weight going forward. One thing that can be really helpful is to look for patterns of things going well. It can help to list some of the good things that happened and then list why they went well. For example, I drank all my water this week. Why did that happen? Because it's becoming a habit. Maybe I went for 2 walks this week. Why did that happen? Because I had more energy, because my body is in a healthier place now. I ate all my vegetables this week. Why did that happen? Maybe I'm starting to like vegetables, and maybe I didn't used to like them or didn't regularly incorporate them into my meals, and now I'm starting to really enjoy doing that. When we look for what we're doing well, it helps us see healthy patterns and helps us continue to do those things. And I'll say it again, those health behaviors are really, really important to maintain your weight in the long term. So when you practice those, you're investing in your life now and you're investing in your life for the future. Should statements like, I should eat more salads, I should exercise. These can put us under a lot of pressure to meet someone else's expectations. Now, it's important to remember that when we are motivated by something that we want to do, we're more likely to stick with it than if the motivation comes from what someone else wants us to do. Instead of saying, I should eat more salads, it can help to say, I could eat more salads. It helps to put ourselves back in control of our choices. So if salads or vegetables are something that you're struggling with, if we keep to play off of this example, think about why you want to eat salads or why you want to eat vegetables. Maybe you don't prefer salads. Maybe you prefer cooked vegetables. Maybe getting plenty of fiber helps with your digestion. Maybe getting plenty of vegetables helps you feel more full and more satisfied from your meals. Maybe there's a particular way that you like to prepare your vegetables, maybe roasted with garlic or steamed with lemon juice and black pepper. Maybe there's some way that you like to prepare it that you really prefer, and then you want to make that choice. If you want to delve more into what motivates you, there's a section of your Livea guide, pages 95 to 100 of your wellness workbook that kind of guides you through thinking about what motivates you. You could also bring it up at your next appointment with your Livea consultant. But when we put ourselves back in control of our choices, we're much more likely to want to make those choices and to continue to make them. Self-defeating humor. This one is a little bit different from some of the other automatic negative thoughts in that it's more out loud. It tends to be more in social situations. But this is when we put ourselves down to make other people laugh. And I use this example, I'm just a fat old man. And I use that because I've heard women describe themselves as fat old men because they wanted it to be funny. And sometimes things like this can seem funny in the moment, but there tends to be pain behind that statement. And it tends to make us feel worse in the long run. So I'd encourage you when you're making jokes to look for jokes that don't target a particular person, that don't target you, that don't target somebody else, and jokes that connect you to other people, things that we can all laugh about together that can bring us all together rather than putting yourself down. You don't have to believe every thought that comes into your head. When you find yourself examining some of these automatic negative thoughts, take another look. See if you're sure. That's the best place to start, is to say, am I sure that this is true? Am I sure that this disaster is going to happen? Am I sure that I have all the information? what information am I missing? A couple examples here. A sample negative thought is, I always mess up on the weekend. So here we can start with, am I sure that I always mess up on the weekend? We want to look for what information is missing here. So in this situation, we're probably doing some all or nothing thinking. So we may think that if we have one indulgence on the weekend, then we've messed up the weekend. But really, we may have done, maybe Fridays are a time that we struggle, but Sundays go really well. It's important to look for, is this statement always true? And I don't think it is. I think we're also catastrophizing a little bit here too. Maybe we're telling ourselves that the weekend has been a disaster, and maybe we're disqualifying the good things that we've done. It's important to remember that our healthy choices still count, even if we had an indulgent choice as well. So vegetables don't get canceled out by cookies. Those good choices you've made still count. So in this case, we're not ignoring the things that we need to work on, but we're making sure that we have an accurate view of what's really happening and giving ourselves credit for the good things that we've done on the weekend. Another sample negative thought is, that was stupid. So maybe that's when we say, I didn't eat my vegetables like I said I would, or I didn't exercise because I put it off till the end of the day. That was stupid. Now this is labeling. We're labeling ourselves with a negative term. And in this case, the information that we're missing is we've forgotten that the habits that we're working on are usually a habit that we've had for a really long time, maybe even since we were kids. And there was a time and a place when that habit that we're trying to break now was the best tool that we had to deal with a situation. And it takes time and it takes practice to learn that new habit that we're trying to put in place. It's all part of the process of change, and it's important to give ourselves some grace for that and to remember that it takes time and that we are not stupid. We're not a negative term because we're going through the process of change. Now, it can take time and it can take practice to change those negative thoughts, especially if there's something that maybe you haven't recognized in the past. But with time and practice, it will become easier. If you want to do some further research on some of the information that I've presented, here's some information for further reading. I'll leave this screen up for a couple minutes in case anybody wants to write any of these articles down. So thank you so much for everybody who joined in today. If you know somebody who also wanted to see this but didn't have time to watch the presentation, feel free to pass it on to them. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.